And our top focus this news week. A disturbing trend sweeping across the country. Trust is turning into betrayal and love into murder. In two chilling cases just days apart, romantic relationships ended not in heartbreak but in homicide. And in both, the killers were not strangers but the very people once called lovers. In Shillong, what was meant to be a dreamy honeymoon turned into a premeditated murder. Sonam Raghuvanshi, the wife of Indore techie Raja Raghuvanshi, is accused of plotting his murder with her lover and other people. Raja Raghuvanshi's body was found at the bottom of a gorge in Meghalaya. His wife surrendered 16 days later after going missing. Many had earlier insisted maybe she was murdered and had gone missing as well. There was a human trafficking angle that people were speculating on. And now it is being learned that the wife herself plotted the murder of the husband, that too on the honeymoon. 20 days of wedlock and, well, things go sour. Then in Bengaluru, you've got a 36-year-old Harini who was stabbed to death, and we're now learning 17 times a brutal murder by her 25-year-old lover Yashas, who was a software engineer inside a hotel room, is where the murder took place. And their affair, which began at a local fair nearby, soured after her husband found out, because this was an illicit relationship to begin with. When she tried to distance herself, Yashas turned predator. She was avoiding me. That's why I killed her, he confessed coldly. And both these cases expose an alarming pattern of how intimate partners are turning into executioners, where jealousy, you've got rejection, obsession, trauma, they override reason. In a world where love is expected to protect, it is now being weaponized. And what motivates these killings? To discuss more on this, I'm joined by Ranjan Dwivedi, former Director General of Police, UP Police, and Dr. Nisha Khanna, who's a clinical psychologist. A very warm welcome to you on to the broadcast. And before we move on to the panelists with us on the broadcast here, let's listen in to some of those reactions coming across from, of course, Sonam and Raja Raghuvanshi's family. Now that this case is pretty much cracked open and the police have worked in tandem with the UP police, the Meghalaya police, all those departmental joint probe that was carried out. Some of those reactions coming across from the Indore honeymoon murder that we're tracking and the Bengaluru murder that's just come to light.
क्या करवाई, उससे कड़ी से कड़ी सजा मिलना चाहिए। मेरा बच्चा किस हालत में था, कैसा तड़पा था, और अगर वो सोनम उससे इतना प्यार करती थी तो वो राजा को छोड़ के इस हालत में नहीं जा सकती थी। और सोनम सुरक्षित कैसी है, सोनम के ऊपर एक खरोच क्यों नहीं आया? तो 3 थे, 4 जने थे, 5 जने, 6 जने, जो भी उनकी टीम थी, उनको सबको कड़ी से कड़ी सजा मिलना चाहिए।
ये राज कुशवाहा कौन है जिसका नाम सामने आया?
ये नाम मैंने कभी नहीं सुना।
सरकार से क्या मांग करना?
सरकार से यही मांग है कि आज समाज पे से विश्वास हटा है। हमारी समाज में अभी तक ऐसा कोई काम नहीं हुआ था, जो आज हमारी समाज में ऐसा काम हुआ है गया, तो मतलब कड़ी से कड़ी सजा दी जाए। सरकार से मेरा एक ही निवेदन है कि मेरा बच्चा किस हालत में तड़पा, उनको भी ऐसे तड़पा तड़पा के मारो।
कभी सोनम का ऐसा
That was the mother of Raja Raghuvanshi saying that there's certainly something foul in this entire case, and the strictest of punishment should be meted to those that are behind this heinous crime. Now, Ranjan Dwivedi, former Director General of Police, UP Police, and Dr. Nisha Khanna, clinical psychologist, with me here on the broadcast. You know what? Let me quickly come to you, DGP Dwivedi. Let me understand this from your perspective, because a spate of these young couples turning on each other has now come to light. Not just these two cases. In Delhi alone, a 9-year-old that was murdered. Yesterday, a woman was found murdered in a Oyo hotel in Paharganj. Now a Bengaluru case that's come to light. Only recently, a man in Bengaluru beheaded the wife and coldly carried the severed head to the cops and the police station. From your experience, what is driving this violent shift, if one could ask that, in intimate relationships, and especially focused on the young, I mean the youth, those that are below 40, these murders are being carried out by them?
Yeah, but firstly, thank you very much for raising a relevant question. Because, since morning I've been answering questions on the case itself, but that's for the police to respond. But the macro issues, as you have mentioned, I mean, that's what we should focus on. So the first thing is, this whole issue of caste has to be addressed. In today's time, people objecting to young children marrying each other because of a different caste, that has to be condemned in a big way, and whoever supports it, very stern action should be taken against the person, because in half the cases The problem is that because the couple belongs to a different caste, therefore they have to run away, and it increases the vulnerability of the woman. You see, women in our society, why just in our society across the world, I've seen, around the world, I've seen, they're extremely vulnerable. They seek support, they seek security. And if we do anything that intensifies this feeling of insecurity, then we are doing a great disservice to half the person kind, half the world. Women are very insecure. You have to make them feel more secure. That is one. Second thing is, this whole question of stigma. I mean, the society is so poor in this that we hesitate not for a single second in stigmatizing a woman who has been bad in a poor circumstance for no fault of hers. And if you keep doing that, then obviously, if rape is very serious, comes later. But even if she's manhandled, or there's something else, even a minor offense takes place, women do not come out, and the family tells them to just hush it up and keep quiet, which is absurd. And there has to be a social movement that in case of even an inappropriate touch, the woman should complain. The law is there, and if we start taking it seriously, then I'm sure it would make a big difference. And the third is, and this is about my own community. You see, unfortunately, the police also does not take crime against women with the same seriousness as we ought to. And this is despite there will be no police officer whose sister, wife, or a close relative would not have been teased. But when it comes to constituents which do not have a voice, the police tends to just play it down. It could be because of a lot of work or whatever, but it has to be brought higher and higher on the agenda. And
Thanks, DGP Dwivedi. You've raised some very pertinent points here, and I would like to bring in Dr. Khanna in on this. From a clinical psychologist's perspective, lack of police support, the DGP talking about lack of remedies available for women in general. There are social pressures, caste being one of those big issues which need to be addressed, and people have been talking about this for the longest time. But why do relationships, especially amongst the young, they turn into deadly traps for themselves? Is this a case about not being able to silently quit, not being able to say no and walk out of a sour relationship? What goes wrong in the mind of a young person in love, Dr. Khanna?
I would say that it is, I think so, highlighting about majorly the mental health of the person who committed the crime and who became the victim. So, in this particular case, or whatever the cases you talked about, when people suffer from mental health concerns, it may be they have antisocial personality disorders, it may be they have depressive tendencies, it may be they are suffering from some psychotic or any psychotic episodes, they may be having psychopathic traits, they may be having apathy, there are alexithymia, there are numerous problems maybe they are associated with, which they may suffer from sadistic personalities. So either they are having gaslighting personality, either they are narcissistic, whatever the traits these person may be suffering from, and they must not be aware that much about the severity. And if they knew about whatever the personality traits, or sometimes people have intrusive thoughts and people make stories. In this particular case of the crime, where girl made a story that she got been, I would say, she got by the roped by people, and that they caught her, they kidnapped her. I have done certain cases where even the 17, 18 years old kids or 20 years old kids made stories like this. Somebody kidnapped them and they fell down by their own, and one
Coming out, Dr.
single
Khanna,
chain of
why
the
those
mistakes.
stories at such a young age? I mean, my apologies for interjecting, but are we seeing, you use the word narcissism, are we seeing this rising trend in the traits of narcissism and, sociopathic, emotionally detached youngsters in today's time? Is that one of the reasons?
No, if you say that from the childhood onwards, these are the symptoms like conduct disorder, antisocial personalities, where the people think that the
Right.
antisocial personality is that my life, my rules. I want to do things with my own way. Disobedience, maybe throwing things. They have bipolar traits, multiple personality disorders. There are multiple reasons behind one particular person who became today what he is today or she is today. It's like number of years. You're born and brought up. Your genetics plays role. Your social cultural environment play a role. Your psychological well-being plays a role. Everything plays a role. It's a cluster of things. You can't blame on one particular another factor. In this relationship also, this guy Raja was having a doubt this girl is bit detached, is not seem interested in marriage. He pointed out these things to his mother also, but they ignored that. And I knew that numerous cases where one person is not ready for the marriage, still they go ahead for the marriage, and later on the problems comes up. And we all have the stigmas. When you are talking about narcissism, in this particular trait I am finding psychotic tendencies, because if someone has a schizophrenia symptoms, the delusion and hallucination is the part, and person makes stories out of no sense, maybe having no correlation with the reality. So like the police is saying this girl is behind the murder, and this girl is saying no, I was being kidnapped. So it is maybe the psychotic traits are there, and these are somewhere from the longer run we are not aware, or maybe we ignore those traits. This is what thing, when you say is narcissism, it is
No,
about
certainly. So,
entitlement without
along
doing
with the
anything.
social pressures, along with the lack of remedies, along with the lack of course, police support and caste issues, I think the psychotic behaviors are to be red flagged earlier on. I'm going to come to you and understand better, how can one notice these red flags and how can one work around these red flags. But back to DGP Dwivedi, from the criminal probe point of view, sir. In the age of AI, with the advent of technology, so much of our personal life is already out there. Does technology help aid the policemen when they're carrying out their probe? And how big of a role does technology play in these young minds? Because I don't have a better way of putting this question across. And listen, hear me out, sir. These crimes, they're passionate, they're sometimes premeditated also, but are these usually disguised as emotional outbursts? Is that something that's happening now?
So that's a good question you raised. Actually, technology cuts both ways. Technology has been extremely helpful to police to work out these cases, because usually initially when the relationship is building up, nobody bothers about call records and call details, where they are, the time and place stamp, and so on, which actually help the police in establishing a relationship and evidence, very strong evidence, which the accused then cannot contradict. So, but that's what. But the other aspect is it's made a relationship and a friendship between a boy and a girl so easy, and that's another problem. And it's an old problem, not a new one. That once a girl makes contact with the boy, the society that we live in, the boy starts blackmailing her, because even a message becomes a tool to blackmail. You can always say that, look, I'm going to go to your father, your parents, your society, your friends, relatives, and tell them you'll be messaging me, and which is seen as a crime. I mean, a girl messaging a boy of her own age is not a crime, but unfortunately in this country it is considered a crime. That's a social model you follow. So there has to be a lot more openness. There has to be a lot more dialogue between parents and the children, and give them the confidence that in case they have made any false step, not to bother, tell them about it. And the police also set up systems for that. There's a 1090 system in UP, where girls, if they are subjected to torture on the phone, on the mobile phone, they can report it to the police anonymously, and it's taken care of in a very anonymous way, in an obtrusive way, so that the girl doesn't feel that she doesn't feel cornered, and she can get out of a bad relationship. You see, there's so many things. I'll give you an example. I was in the UK, and my wife told me that when she went to the toilet, she found that in the mirror it was written there that in case your date has gone wrong, if you're being harassed or something, just go to reception and say you want to meet Angelo. So that's a signal that you're in a problem, and we'll quietly, discreetly guide you out of the problem. Now, these are very good systems, but all of us go abroad, but we don't implement such systems over here. So, a lot of support is required, a lot of dialogue is required, and openness is required. Children don't talk to parents, parents don't talk to children. Everybody's busy in WhatsApp. So, that yes, do samvad hota hai. This is extremely important.
No, you're absolutely right, sir. We do need more support for these young children. Of course, we're running out of time here, but I'm going to go to Dr. Khanna once again. Dr. Khanna, from a clinical psychologist perspective, I think, of course, the probe agencies are going to carry out their job in due course of time. The legal work and the legal hurdles, they both come in various shapes and sizes. All these various cases, the patterns, the trends that one can draw out, all of that, the data analysts are going to do. But your message to the youngsters that are probably watching this show right now, what are some of the early red flags that family members and, lovers and partners themselves can notice and identify, they can look out for when a relationship starts becoming toxic? Let's help the viewers out there. Let's help the youngsters out there. What are some of those red flags that can be spoken about? DGP was just talking about, how messages are being used to blackmail, because all of it is already stored on our mobile phones and data.
I would say the first of the toxic signs in the relationship is love bombing. In the initial, maybe either there is too much attachment or there is too much detachment. In this particular case, if you're highlighting that this girl was least interested in the guy Raja. So these sort of behavior is one of the red flag. Either the person is showing so much of love, and after initially showing so much of love, their behavior changed totally opposite, and person start ignoring. That is again one of the toxic sign in the relationship. Other thing is the power and the control, emotional unavailability of the partner, lies, excuses, maybe controlling the other person, knowing about the well-being of the person, where you are going, maybe the exchanging the WhatsApp location, asking you to call, give us a video call, where you are, how you are. All these are the minor small signs. Maybe you can say also the people break things, having the history of drug abuse. If they are too much into alcohol or drugs, that is also one of the major toxic signs that you have not to go ahead with the relationship. Maybe sometimes they use these things also to manipulate and give the guilt to the other partner, so that the partner should be in their trap. And when you are especially talking about the narcissist stain, maybe entitlement, that without doing anything. The relationship is not about only giving. It's about give and take, and it is about mutual thing. And the respect is the utmost important thing which you can't ignore.
Dr.
Because
Khanna, I
most
think
of the
respect
time we
is the
think
utmost thing. Respect is also a two-way street. It doesn't flow one way.
Yes.
It has to be both-sided. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that one needs to take from this show here. Many thanks to DGP Dwivedi and, of course, Dr. Khanna for joining us here on the broadcast here. Because in love, there's obsession that is found. In obsession, there is violence that is found sometimes. And as we are decoding these dark turns of young hearts, unraveling the psyche behind these crimes, one thing is clear. The lines between affection and aggression are blurring dangerously. And the question now isn't just about who did it, but why are they doing it more and more? All those red flags and lots more that's been pointed out by my extreme set of panelists over here.